filming in 4K with a pimple on my nose. Hello and welcome to Monson Made This. My name is Michael. Normally I'm here cooking vegan food or plant-based food, but if you've been around this channel for a while, you know that I've been on a bit of a weight loss journey since December 6th of 2020. So I just wanted to check in with you and give you an update, let you know how that journey is going. And I just have some talking points here, some things that I want to discuss, some story time, just to get you updated on how things have been going. Whether or not it's been smooth sailing and flawless just from beginning to end, which I'm not technically at the end yet, or the kind of obstacles or struggles that I've had along the way, some of the things that I've thought about. So I've made a list of topics and we'll go through that. But without further ado, let me give you an update on the actual weight loss. So December 6th, of 2020 was the very first day, and if you're brand new here wondering what I'm talking about, click this link up here and that'll get you to the playlist for my whole food plant-based weight loss journey. I did a week of what I eat in a day videos to kick it all off, and then all the updates are in that playlist as well, and well, this video will be in there as well. So on December 6th, 2020, my weight was 221.3 pounds. I keep thinking it was 221.6, but it was 221.3 pounds. Now today, which is February 22nd, 2021, if my math is correct, it's been 11 weeks. I am today at 201.6. I wanted to do this video or this particular update when I was at 20 pounds loss. I guess I'm 0.3 pounds away from 20 pounds, but we're gonna round it up to 20 pounds. So officially in 11 weeks, I have lost 20 pounds on a whole food plant-based diet. That means it's been an average of 1.81 pounds per week. In the beginning, that very first week, I was averaging, I think about like 2.5 to 2.75 pounds in a week. Got down to about 2. Now the average is about 1.81. I have been using Chronometer to track calories and macros, not so much the macros as much as calories. So I have that set to a specific number for me, for my weight loss goals. And I have that set, I think, at about 1.5 pounds per week in terms of the calorie deficit that it creates for me. I'm not perfect at it. I sometimes go over, but it's still equaling weight loss, so that's good. I have not plateaued again. I did have a little plateau earlier. I think the last update was about that. And that's because I wasn't really tracking. I was just kind of eyeballing things, and things were great for a while. But what ended up happening is that I was eyeballing and sort of evaluating the calories that I was consuming based on a specific goal, I think, that I ended up reaching. And so I started a plateau because I was theoretically eating the amount of calories that I needed to eat to maintain that weight. Now, I say this in every video, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not an expert in any way, shape, or form on weight loss or nutrition or diet. This is just me, a person who wanted to lose weight, who wanted to try a whole food plant-based diet to see what effect that would have on me and my weight loss. Things have been great. Like I said, 20 pounds loss is pretty good. But in the end, what I've realized, and I've sort of had this from the beginning, is that it had to do with calories in and calories out. But a whole food plant-based diet has allowed me to eat food that makes me feel more satiated and satisfied. And because I feel better when I eat a meal, I don't tend to snack as much or get as many cravings. And so I'm just overall able to eat fewer calories. And especially as I continued the weight loss, when I'm consuming enough calories to continue to lose, I think that eating whole food plant-based has really helped because of the amount of fiber and protein that I've been getting, that it's really helped me stay satisfied, to feel like when I eat a meal that I'm satiated afterwards. And I do think it's held me off in between meals longer. I don't get like a drop in blood sugar so that I immediately get hangry. I feel good most of the time, generally feel satisfied. When I'm hungry, I can feel that hunger and I can recognize it as hunger. It doesn't just feel like I need to immediately shovel food into my mouth, or I don't really feel snacky at all. That's not to say that I don't get cravings, which is something that I will talk about here in a moment. So that's the weight loss update, 20 pounds, 11 weeks. I think that's great. Initially, when I started this out, I was aiming for around 200 pounds. Once I hit that 200-pound mark, I'm planning on kind of going more into the one, like targeting myself more towards like a 1 pound per week weight loss. I really wanted to get to 200. I still want to lose a little bit more just for me. Not to say that there's anything particular or special about the numbers that I've chosen. It's just seeing how I am at this weight. I want to go just a little bit further, but I'm not in a rush. I really did want to get below 200, so that was like a major goal. But now as I progress, I want to kind of lighten things up a little bit and just be less strict about that. And I'll continue to lose, but maybe just not at the rate that I have been, which is okay. So let's get into these various topics and kind of a story time thing. I do feel like I was just saying that I want to, once I hit that 200 mark, kind of relax a little bit. It has felt like it's been a while. 11 weeks isn't a ton of time, and part of me thinks that it has flown by and it went really fast. Another part of me just seems like I've been on this journey for quite a long time. Now, obviously, I didn't have 20 pounds is not a ton of weight, and I know there's a lot of people that maybe want to lose more or less. So obviously, the amount of time is going to be different. I do think that my weight loss has been great, but when you're on a regimented way of eating, or you have a specific, it's with anything that when you have a goal, right, and you want to reach that goal, it just like seems like it's not coming quick enough. But it has been going quickly. I'm rambling here. It's felt like a long time, but it hasn't been a long time. I wouldn't have wanted it to be any quicker because I don't think it would have been good for me. But at the same time, I'm just one of those people that wants the results now. And that's been kind of a difficult thing to rectify within myself, is to stay on course for something that hasn't been giving me necessarily like immediate payoff. Which brings me to another topic of conversation here, which is about the scale and the psychology of the scale. And I know there's a lot of people that don't necessarily like going to Planet Fitness. They don't have scales in their gym because they think that it promotes negative body image, or they want you to focus on being healthy instead of weight loss. So there's a lot of stigma about the scale. I do weigh myself every day, and I have a pretty regimented way of weighing myself. Like I get up, I go to the restroom, I weigh myself directly after that. It's usually the same time every single day. So I have that consistency, and the scale can be all over the place. Within a few days, it can fluctuate quite a few pounds either way. And there are so many variables that affect that. And I try to keep that in mind and try not to let those numbers affect me. But again, when you have a goal and those numbers that you have don't necessarily reflect that goal, it does, can be a little bit discouraging. But I never let myself get to the point of feeling discouraged and say, screw it, I'm giving up, this isn't working, because I understand that the things are going to fluctuate quite a bit. For example, a little story time here. I am still exercising about 4 to 5 days per week. Started out with jogging. I was having a little bit of problem with my knee, so I started using an elliptical machine. And on a good cardio day, I'll do about an hour on the elliptical. It feels great. I love the activity. I love feeling sweaty, and just makes me feel active, getting my heart rate up. And there have been days that I come home after that, after having been on the elliptical, and I weigh myself, and I will be 2 to 3 pounds lighter than I had been prior to. So obviously it's a lot of water weight. And there was one day when I actually weighed in at about like 198, which from today is again 3 pounds lighter than what I am today. And seeing that number and being like, okay, this really truly solidifies how much the scale can fluctuate by so many variables. And I think like seeing that number and knowing the like unreality of it, that as a person who should be more hydrated than that, that's not an accurate number. And I think doing that, and I did it a couple of times, and it's just like, this is just unbelievable. There's a part of you that's like, okay, cool, like you've reached your goal, that's great. But there's another part that's like, wow, the scale thing and using that as your number one barometer for success shows you how much that can be off. Another story on that is that I for Valentine's Day, Ben and I, so I've been eating very like whole food, plant-based, and haven't eaten out at all, cooked all of my meals. But for Valentine's Day, Ben and I wanted to do something special. We wanted to have a nice meal, so we had Thai food from this restaurant in town called Le Thai. And that whole day, I was saying to myself, you know, I'm planning on having this meal for dinner, and you know what? I'm not going to track anything at all today in Chronometer. I'm not going to check my calories at all. I'm just going to live my day. I've been successful, and it's going to be fine. Not really worried about it. And I had been, I think, like 202 around there pounds like that previous day. So the day after, I actually had a doctor's appointment that day. That day after, I got on the scale and I was up to, I think, like 205 pounds. I'm like, wow, I've gained 3 pounds since yesterday. And that, of course, the psychology of like, well, you didn't track your calories. So as much as there's like this knee-jerk reaction to having a feeling about that, but then also realizing that there's no possible way that I could have gained 3 pounds of body fat within that day was unbelievable. Well, then later that day, I had a doctor's appointment. And when I stepped on the scale at the doctor's office, I was 209. And it was like, wow, what has happened? What's going on here? And of course, there's, again, that initial reaction. There's this initial feeling triggered by those numbers. But then again, step back. There's so many variables, different scales, which, you know, I've obviously been using my scale, and that's the one that like I've been tracking my loss on that scale. So regardless of what I might have been on another scale at the beginning, basically it's still at this point 20 pounds on my scale, regardless of, you know, in another scale I might be 203 right now, or 205 or 209 at that doctor's office. So that was something that definitely, my initial reaction was like, oh crap, no, that's not right. I've worked so hard. And yeah, like I've worked so hard and I've done so well for all this time. And now it says 209, which sends me back like a month or two. But then the next day, exercising, I guess I didn't even exercise by the next time. By the next day, weighed myself, things were back to normal. Could have been maybe a lot of sodium in the meal that I ate, was retaining a lot of water. Maybe the meal was still in my stomach at the time. Maybe the doctor's office scale is not accurate, but either way, it all sort of went back to the same decline that it had been before. So I didn't think too much about it afterwards, but yeah, that does happen. I definitely should have maybe measured myself. There's other ways to detect weight loss, which I guess brings me to my next one, which is clothing. I have been an extra large in shirts for as long as I can remember. And it started happening where I would try on clothes before we shot a recipe video. And I would put on clothes and just be like, Ben, does this look like it's just like so big on me? And all my clothes just started to look really big. And you know, it's like 20-pound weight loss on the scale. It doesn't really turn into, I don't know, this like numbers in a bank account versus cash. It's sort of like numbers on a scale versus like how your clothes fit. And I hadn't necessarily like really noticed until just like one day I look at my clothes, I'm like, wow, these are all like really big on me. And I was having a difficult time finding shirts to wear. So I have bought some new clothes. My shirts are now a large size, which feels great. Again, it's just another way of sort of seeing the progress that I've made that isn't just the numbers on a scale, that physically I'm in a smaller size of clothing. So that's actually been, I have to say that one of the reasons I've wanted to lose weight is just so I look better in clothing, which sounds weird, but I wanted to like be a little more fashionable. So that's been one of the major goals, is just so I feel better in clothing. And it's just kind of reignited that idea of like wanting to like put on cool clothes or try on interesting looks. Yeah. Let's go back to talking about, this is going to be all over the place, so buckle up. Talking about tracking things, and it does become daunting after a while to enter everything into Chronometer, to weigh everything. Like I have a little kitchen scale and I'm pretty much weighing everything or measuring everything, and that does become daunting. And I feel like I've shortcutted it. You know, if there's a lot of ingredients that I know aren't going to contribute anything calorically, I don't worry about putting those into Chronometer. Which, side note here, some people have given me like feedback that I should be sharing how many calories I'm eating a day, or share my macros, that other people on YouTube share all that. And the main reason that I haven't shared that is that if somebody else wants to go on a similar journey as me and eat similar foods, and they have their own weight loss goals, and they need to figure out how many calories they should be eating per day in order to reach the goals that they want to reach. Additionally, as I said, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist. I don't know what you need to be eating in terms of your macros. So sharing my macros, and they're, you know, as much as people don't necessarily want to believe it, people see me and they see what I'm doing and they see my success. And this sounds so like egotistical, but they see the success that I've had and they want to be able to duplicate that. And I don't necessarily want people to follow exactly what I'm doing, because this is for me and my goals, and I've had to figure out what's going to work for me. So I'm looking at the kind of foods that I'm eating and how they make me feel. I'm looking at the number of calories I'm eating and how that equates to weight loss, or how it equates to me feeling satisfied for my meals. So that's something you're going to have to figure out for yourself. And giving you the number of macros, meaning how many grams of protein or carbohydrates or fat that I'm consuming in a day, that doesn't matter. What I'm eating doesn't help you out at all, because you're going to be different, things are going to make you feel different, and you just have to try things out and see what's going to work for you. Figure out how many calories you need to be consuming in order to reach the goals that you want to receive. Think about the foods, or try eating foods and see how they make you feel after your meals. So my numbers don't have an effect on you. I do what I eat in a day videos. You see the foods that I'm consuming. You can kind of make that work for you. But if they're not making you feel satisfied, or you're not feeling great after a meal, or you feel that it's like triggering you to eat more, then you have to definitely do what's best for you and make that work for you. And what works for me isn't going to be working for everybody. I'm just putting my experiences out there for you. Which brings me to my next topic here, which is about cravings. As much as I have not had those sort of like cravings or like binge eating tendencies as I've been eating whole food plant-based, that doesn't mean that it goes away. And eating mostly whole food plant-based doesn't mean that it's been entirely, absolutely perfect. So one story that happened just a couple of days ago, I saw something on TV, and I think it was Food Network, because I watch a lot of Food Network and Food TV. There was somebody on there had cooked it was probably the Pioneer woman. She made some sort of like queso cheese sauce with meat, and it looked so good. And I was like, I want to make that. I want that. I need that in my life. So later, as I was watching, there's this really great show on HGTV, Escape the Chateau. It's like this couple bought this chateau in France and they're renovating it. So I'm watching that and I'm like, I really want that queso. I need to figure out how to do this. Well, if you watched my previous video, which is the Lauren Toyota vegan egg yolk video, I still had some of that left over, and I was like, well, that's pretty close to like a cheese sauce. So I added just a little bit of vinegar to it. Ben, who is vegetarian, who loves his vegetarian comfort food, I had made him some Impossible meat tacos, so that was in the fridge, and I had some leftover beans as well. So I basically took the leftover egg yolk, I took some of the the Impossible burger that he had, I took the beans, put it all together, made basically a queso sauce. I had some Ezekiel pita, I had some Ezekiel tortillas. I put those in the oven so they got kind of crispy, so I made chips. And I devoured a ton of this egg yolk turned queso with Impossible burger, and I just made sure to weigh everything and measure everything. And it was quite a large portion, but it ended up fitting into my caloric goals for that day. I enjoyed the food. I was able to creatively come up with a way to have this thing that I was craving. It wasn't perfectly whole food plant-based because, again, of the Impossible burger, but you know what? It was great, and I enjoyed it, and it fit in with my goals. So I did it, and I don't have any I'm not beating myself up because it's like, well, you weren't perfectly whole food plant-based. Yeah, there was oil in it. There was, I don't know what else was in there, but it was delicious, and I moved on. Similarly, I haven't had really any like binging, like a lot of times I've noticed that refined flours, refined sugars, eating those will have a tendency to make me just keep going back to the cupboard and eating and eating and eating. And because I haven't had any really refined sugar, well, I haven't had any refined sugar, refined flour, I haven't had that feeling. But I know that one of my trigger foods is salt and pepper pistachios from Palm Wonderful. If you've never had the salt and pepper pistachios, they're like the salt and pepper potato chips from Trader Joe's. There's something about it. So I had them before, and I know that I had a problem with them like a few weeks ago, and I stopped buying them. But the other day I was at the store and I saw them again. I'm like, those actually sound really good. You know what, I'm gonna treat myself. So I bought a bag, which I think was £1, transferred it to a quart jar. I'll just eat a little bit at a time. And I ended up like weighing some out. Okay, this is a good serving. Let's just say by the end of that day, that container was gone. I had consumed a pound of pistachios. And I stopped tracking. I was like, there's no way to track all this. I think I'd thrown away the bag, obviously, when I transferred it to the jar. But yeah, I did not feel great afterwards. I didn't feel like, that made me feel like I gave in to the food that I knew was going to make me eat too much of the food, more than I wanted to. But again, now I realize that that's definitely something that when I want control over food to not necessarily eat, because I can't control myself around salt and pepper pistachios. So lesson learned. I didn't beat myself up. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed overeating those. I actually felt pretty good the next day too. Like considering all the salt and sodium that was in there, I didn't feel like, I felt great. Did the elliptical the next day, moved on. Next topic is just about other people. Ben and I actually had a bit of a fight/argument a week or two ago, and his issue was that he felt that I was being too restrictive with my food, that I wasn't eating the foods that I used to, and that was pretty much having an effect on him. Because I'm not making meals like we normally would. Although, again, like I said, I made him Impossible tacos, and I'm still cooking food for him, but he definitely relies on me for home-cooked meals most of the time, unless it's something quick that he can just throw together. So he's relying on me, and I'm not necessarily cooking those foods that I once did. And so it was having, or is having, an effect on him. And also our ability to kind of share and sit down and enjoy meals together, which we haven't always had that. Like, we'll watch like the Chateau show sitting on the couch watching TV, eating a meal at the same time, and that's our, one of our bonding experiences. But yeah, admittedly, that hadn't been happening that much since I had been on this weight loss journey. And it was something that was affecting him because he wasn't seeing it from my perspective. He was seeing it how it was affecting him. We had like a good 20-30 minute conversation about it, discussion with him. I showed him my chronometer. Hey, this is what I'm doing. These are my macros. This is like what I'm actually eating. These are the number of calories that I'm eating. It's not super hyper restrictive. I'm not like limiting myself. I'm not going to wither away to nothing. And yeah, once I again hit a marker for myself, I will start to relax a little bit and enjoy more of the foods that we had enjoyed together. But again, I'm feeling great with the food that I'm eating, and I'm really enjoying the meals that I'm eating. So I don't have this, oh my God, I can't wait for this to be done so I can eat these foods that I haven't eaten in so long. It's not like that at all. But it does have an effect on your relationship with others in relationship to food. Another thing that came up is Ben's parents are in town, and we had gone for a walk in the park with our dogs, and afterwards they were, and this is actually like the day after the doctor's office experience where I weighed in at 209, so it was the next day, and we had gone for a walk with our dogs, and his parents were like, hey, why don't we get some food together? Why don't we have pizza? And, there's places in town where you can get vegan pizzas, like I think Blaze, and you can even just get pizza without cheese. Or there's a place called Pizza Rock, which is really good, and they have vegan cheese as well. So it's definitely their options. It wasn't as if they were oblivious to our being vegan and vegetarian. But, they suggested, hey, why don't we get some food together? And that immediately had this kind of like, oh my God, I can't eat that food because I'm focusing on my weight loss and I'm focusing on the foods that I'm eating. And Ben was actually really great and kind of stuck up for me there. He's like, hey, Michael's been, on this diet. He's doing really well. So I think we're going to go home and eat. And that made me feel good that he stuck up for me, but it also had this feeling of like, wow, am I missing out on experiences with others? Am I too focused on this weight loss journey and focusing on the foods that I'm eating, that it's preventing me from enjoying the company of others? Or, did that have an effect on Ben's ability? Like, he didn't get to have dinner with his parents that day because we went home and I put together a bowl or a salad. So that's something that has been on my mind. Am I focusing on this to the detriment of relationships with others? We're in the middle of a global pandemic, or hopefully towards the tail end of a global pandemic, but people aren't really eating out at restaurants or shouldn't be, and they're not having huge gatherings. So I haven't felt too guilty about just eating at home and not eating out, but that was a recent event that occurred that made me kind of question. Again, I felt really great that Ben kind of stuck up for me there and ended up having a great meal at home. I felt great. But other than that, I haven't really felt like I've missed out on eating with people again, because people aren't really gathering or eating together. I'm not sure what the end of this story is necessarily, or the end of this point is, but that's just something that's gone on in my head, is this idea of how what I'm eating has affected other people or my relationships with other people. Having said that, and about food again, I really am enjoying the food that I'm eating, and I've come up with a lot of great recipes. I'm enjoying, it's like going vegan from being an omnivore. You veganize all these recipes, and now I feel like I'm having another kind of renaissance of taking vegan recipes and trying to make them more whole food plant-based. So I did the Lauren Toyota yolk sauce, which is the last video, and used cashews instead of vegan butter and reduced the calories by half and made it fit in with my goals. And so I'm actually really enjoying that process again. I'm sort of like, at first I was a little bit like, what am I gonna cook? I can't be creative in the kitchen anymore. Like, I felt limited. But the more time that I've been doing this, the more that I felt like, actually, this is kind of like a fun obstacle to be able to kind of think myself out of or around. So, pay attention, stay tuned. There's gonna be a lot more whole food plant-based recipes that are based on recipes that I already have on my channel, or other kind of classic recipes. I have a really great chocolate oat muffin coming up very soon. I promised a tempeh kind of tutorial that's coming out very soon. I have this really cool way of cooking tofu that I have come up with, and that is kind of like a game changer in terms of using that in things like sandwiches and pastas and stuff like that. So I'm very excited for that. So just to finish this off here, I'm very happy with my weight loss and my goals, and I know that the scale and the weight isn't everything, and the way that clothes fit me and the way that I feel, and when I look in the mirror, I know that I'm having success outside of just how much those numbers are on the scale. And there might be some detriment to relationships or being able to spend time with people or enjoying food with people, but I'm also on a diet right now. I'm in a time where I'm doing something to get to a better place for myself, and it's great people understand that and people realize that. And I think too, that's where I wanted to go with that story. His parents were really great. Actually, after Ben said that, they were like, no, you look really good. You're doing really well. Like, I don't know if I would have been able to do that. So they gave me sort of my props for speaking up and being like, no, I want to, I'm still working towards this. So I think that, initially it's like, let's go get pizza. And I felt guilty for, turning them down. But then in the end, I think that they gave me my props because I did turn them down in support of my goals and what I'm trying to reach. So thank you all for watching. Thanks to those of you that are supporting this channel, and I'm sorry the things that are going on. There's a lot more of these kind of videos versus recipe videos, but there are a lot more recipe videos to come, more whole food plant-based content. If there's things that you want to see or recipes that you want me to translate over to whole food plant-based, please comment below and let me know. If you want more rambly videos like this, let me know as well. The weight loss is probably going to become secondary to everything else now, just because I've reached my initial goal and things are just kind of slowly going to progress. Of course I'll give you some updates, but this was basically, this 20 pounds was kind of the big push that I needed, or the big kind of, this was the main haul. And after this, it's just kind of drift along and see how things go. And, you know, kind of in mostly maintenance, but also kind of still trying to lose a little bit, so rambles. Okay, thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Ryan Little.